Hello and welcome to Kelly and Wrighty. Fenty is here this week, having stayed up all night to watch Super Bowl. Was it worth it?
In the words of Usher, yeah.
Half-time entertainment at the Super Bowl, but this is full-time coverage of a brilliant weekend of Premier League action. We're concentrating on the real football. Coming up today, Arsenal went from wild celebrations against Liverpool to not celebrating at all as they put 6 past West Ham. Mikel Arteta says the force is with the Gunners in this title race. So how big a message was that to Klopp and Pep?
Arsenal were amazing, but West Ham were woeful as David Moyes blamed his players for how much pressure is the Hammers boss now under.
And Manchester United have blown the race for the Champions League wide open with their late winner Aston Villa. Legend Paul Scholes says United will finish above both Villa and Spurs. We'll discuss.
Well, we've had thrashings, amazing comebacks, stoppage time goals. What a weekend.
Oh, it's all shaping up very nicely for an exciting end to the season. That felt like a huge win for Manchester United at Aston Villa. So they're now just 6 points off fourth place Tottenham, who themselves needed a late goal to beat Brighton. Arsenal have put 6 past West Ham, so that means they're now level with Manchester City on points and, significantly, goal difference. City are only second on goals scored. Liverpool's home win over Burnley, which was tough going for them, but it keeps them top. And then at the bottom of the table, Sheffield United, it felt like they were all but gone, but they've got just their 3rd win of the season. And importantly, it was against Luton as they go level on points with Burnley and 7 points from safety. So maybe there is a glimmer of hope. Everton is still in the relegation zone. Luton are in 17th. Crystal Palace are in 15th and they host 11th place Chelsea tonight. As I said, we're getting into the really exciting part of the season. Probably it's going to start to feel a bit more real when we get past the international break at the end of March. Rachel Corsie is here, Darren Lewis is here to chat through everything with us. And, of course, all the players are going to start to get all of their Africa Cup of Nations players back from... I mean, a few of them have come back not happily because it means they've been knocked out early from the tournament. But the final took place. Ivory Coast won it. It was a home tournament from them. And really, with Sébastien Haller getting the win for them, it was almost the most perfect situation with everything that he's been through with his recovery from cancer. And Simon Adingra of Brighton, their winger, is returning back as champion of Africa, which is just fantastic. We saw the reception that McAllister got when he went back to Brighton with his team at the time, and he came back as a World Cup winner. But what a tournament that... I know it's not really in our remit, but what a tournament it was. Yeah,
it's been fantastic. I mean, I've pretty much watched a load of the games. It's been a nice feel to this tournament as well. I think the coverage has been good. I thought the final was a really, really spectacular game yesterday in terms of Nigeria taking the lead and Ivory Coast coming back. But so many sub-stories as well. You talk about Sébastien Haller as well, who's had a tough, tough time. We all know what he went through. And for him to score the winner in the AFCON final, I mean, he's written his own story there. It was a fantastic tournament and one that people look back and go, yeah, they were proud to be part of it, because I absolutely love watching it.
Yeah, I mean, he went through that whole journey from 2022 to scoring that winner in the 81st minute in front of a home crowd. It's just the most extraordinary story for him. And it was a tournament that, as you say, just felt full of all those moments. There was late drama, there was all the excitement. Ivory Coast sacked their manager in the group stages because they thought nothing was going to happen. I mean, it was just a fantastic tournament. We could talk loads more about it, but we can't, because we have to get through all the Premier League action. And after being accused of excessive celebration last week for Arsenal and maybe going a little bit early, Declan Rice clearly took that to heart, because when he scored against his old club West Ham, and it was a fantastic finish from him. It was the 6th one, so you could be forgiven for being a little bit low-key. But look, he's gone, I'm not celebrating at all. I think that's a really dignified, thoughtful thing to do, a real sign of a really good human being, don't you think, Darren?
Yeah, I mean,
not celebrating against your old side.
Honestly, do you know what? Josh, I knew something was going on. I knew it. But I think when you look at this type of scenario compared to honestly, wrong.
Every time you think it's over, you go again with another celebration. There's a story behind that.
I love a good stitch up in the morning.
For me on that one, there is an kind of story to that, because obviously my relationship Spurs fans.
Yeah.
But with the Declan Rice one, like, I've scored against Ipswich, the team that I started my career at, and didn't celebrate because there is that respect element there. But I missed that was coming.
Penalty against them earlier in the season as well.
I missed 3 in one season.
Yeah, and then
I
so there was
I took 3 at the Stadium of Light, missed 2, and missed 1 at White Lane.
Yeah. That was tough.
So honestly.
So a little bit, yeah. You can be forgiven for celebrating under those circumstances. Oh, yeah. Although, to be fair, Wrighty, we often kind of give... We give you a load of goals as well when you go in that you scored. And to be fair, there was a goal there that you were celebrating, so that's all fine. But look, Arsenal were celebrating, and like rightly so, because when you look at the way, Rachel, that it went after that game against Liverpool, and you think... OK, you can do it against Manchester City at the Emirates, you can do it against Liverpool at the Emirates, you can get those wins. What you need to do now is make sure you follow that up with a really good performance, because I think it was a draw after the City win. And this one it wasn't just a win, it was an emphatic win at the London Stadium, and 6 goals with 5 different goal scorers.
Yeah, and I think just touching on the celebrations, for me, I actually think that's fine, but I think you then have to accept you have to take your medicine. So you choose to celebrate that early, then you need to be ready. If things don't quite continue as they are at the moment, then you've got to be ready that some people might choose to rub that in your face down the line. But yeah, I think it was a great performance. I think probably people expected it to be a lot tighter than it was, and I think maybe in the early stages of the game it was a little more balanced. I think Arsenal are just hitting a really good bit of form. You can feel the environment and the energy between the players. I think Arteta probably likes to maybe wind people up and feel that energy probably a little more outwardly. But I think you can sense there's just a good camaraderie amongst the group, and the fact they've got goals coming from different players, you know, Saliba getting, you know, the 2 goals, I think that's really important, because a lot of people have spoken about Arsenal missing a 9, and Jesus, when he's not playing or injured, whatever the reason may be, I think teams probably hone in on that a lot, and probably, you know, a result like that really goes a long way for that group of players.
Do you know what, that performance, I thought, was always coming, because you look at the way they played against West Ham a couple of weeks back, and it wasn't the fact that they didn't play badly, they just couldn't take their chances. The moment you score early, or you get that momentum, and that Liverpool game certainly, given that last weekend, you knew this result was coming. So it was just a matter of time, and I think the tactical awareness from Arteta to try certain players, Trossard was a masterstroke. I always believe that it wasn't going to continue. That not scoring goals, you got to Martinelli, too good of a player. Saka, these guys are too good of a player to continue for too long. All it took was that one, and that result maybe against Liverpool gave them the confidence. But that one there against West Ham, that was always coming in my eyes, for sure.
And it's interesting, the point that you made about the energy levels, because that was what was really evident in the win against Liverpool, and the calmness that they showed in the beginning of that game with West Ham. I think that was the point about the criticism, was you cannot live at that level of intensity throughout the course of a football season. It's going to exhaust you. At some stage, you're going to burn out. And what they showed was the maturity, maybe from a learning experience from last season. At the beginning of that game against West Ham, where they went, we're happy to go steady here because we know we've got it to come.
Absolutely. You showed the table right at the start of the show, and I think that table is the reason why Arsenal celebrated as much as they did last week, because they are fine margins, and so when you come up against a big team, one of the top 2, one of the teams above you, you've got to pull them in. And so to beat them as convincingly as they did, even if it were a slender victory, the fact is they're still in the race. Had they lost, they'd have been out of it, because this time last year, City put together a run that saw them take 43 points from 45 to win the league. They've got that consistency in their locker. Liverpool have got that consistency in theirs, and they've got the firepower up front. They find a way to win. So Arsenal had to win that game, and that gives them the confidence, as you say, to express themselves in this game, because then they can go into it without people saying, lose this one and they're even further behind. Actually, it's lose this one and stay in touch, stay in the race, and that's what they did so superbly well. Yeah,
and it was a really good performance, and you know, we've talked about it overall, but their success from set pieces is unbelievable. You wouldn't necessarily associate this Arsenal side with set pieces. In fact, you'd probably think, come up against the David Moyes side, and West Ham will be able to defend the set pieces better than Arsenal can execute them. It's not the case in that game, and it hasn't been the case all season. They've scored 16 goals from set pieces.
It's clearly something they've worked on, because, as you said there, Kels, there was a period for Arsenal where they were putting the ball in the box, but I don't think there was any real conviction to get on the end of it. It was just putting it in for the sake of winning a corner. But you can quite clearly see now, every single time there's a set play, whether it be a free kick or a corner, there's a plan towards it, and there's no reason why Gabriel, you can quite clearly see the connection he's got. Saliba, they've now got guys that want to go and head the ball in. it's a weapon at the end of the day. Set plays are so vital to this modern day football, where they separate the little results, the fine margins. And Arsenal have been fantastic.
I think that is a really key point. There's a lot about the organisation of this team, and that is so important. They've actually got a set-piece coach. You see him take centre stage in the technical area, and Arteta step back a bit, and he says, the floor is yours, and he's earning his money. When you see those numbers, he's earning his money. They've got the best defensive record in the Premier League as well. There is organisation about these teams. They haven't got the fluidity of City or the spectacular attack that Liverpool have. But that organisation, those 1-0s and clean sheets, that's what wins you titles. And that's why they've got such a good chance, even though they don't have that firepower.
Yeah, getting the 1-0 win from a 0-0 situation is huge, but also to score 6, go level on goal difference with City, only 1 behind Liverpool on goal difference. When we talk about fine margins, that could prove crucial come the end of the season. But even when we talk about whether or not Arsenal are missing a centre-forward, and you score 6 goals with 5 different goal scorers, and you think, maybe they're not. But, you know, you look at that, the fact that they are so effective from set pieces, that's one very good way of counteracting that if it is a weakness.
Yeah, it is. I think one thing they've done as well is I think Declan Rice now is the key, or the main person who takes a lot of set pieces, and I think that's something where when you do have a set piece go, I know playing in teams, like a lot of the times there's people who are like, I take the set pieces. Like, you know, you kind of think it's awkward. I'm not going to take on that debate today. I'm just going to let them take them. But now I think when you have a set piece coach, it becomes there's certain types of deliveries. So it doesn't matter if as a player you think, well, I always take them. It's a case of, can you deliver in this area? And if you can, yeah, you can take them. Or if we want this type of delivery, it's going to be this type of player. If we want in-swinger, out-swinger, all these things now make a difference, and it's enough to, you know, whether you take them or not, you have to be able to do that consistently. And I think that obviously is a change they've made towards kind of the mid to second part of this season that went in so far, and it's starting to have the rewards.
Yeah, I think we saw that most clearly in Gabriel's goal, where he went over and he talked to Declan Rice beforehand and said, that's where I want the ball. And it was absolutely perfect. And playing with someone who could do that for you must be incredible.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at on the flip side, West Ham have probably got the best at doing that in James Ward-Prowse, because he puts it exactly where they want it and they go and attack it. But
he's still not scored a direct free kick for West Ham.
It's crazy.
Every time I get the opportunity, I mention that, because it just seems bizarre to me. That aside.
But no, yeah, for Declan Rice as well, to have that conversation and to find someone who's got that quality to put it in there, I mean, that's half the battle. I mean, it's all well and good you work throughout the week in doing these set plays, and it can be boring as a player. I'm sure it's so boring. But when you look at the hunger and desire that Arsenal show to do it, you need someone who's going to be able to put it where you want it. All that Gabriel and that I've got to do is put the head on it. And this ball here, this is a fantastic cross, by the way.
And that's the thing, you know, like Rice, he has all of that hyper anim and the vanilla ice stuff, but they do stop, collaborate and listen.
Yay! Thanks for coming, Darren. You don't need to say another word today. Don't do that. Last time you really did drop me.
I really did, absolutely. Sorry, I couldn't hold that one.
No, that's perfect. You want to take a moment to enjoy that one. But you know, but you're right. He does have that effect from set pieces, but he also, it seems to be very able to control that tempo from midfield. It's a Chris Waddle term that I was using there. He's obsessed with the tempo of the game, but he seems to be able to control the tempo of the game from midfield in a way that maybe Arsenal at times couldn't. And when we talk about the calm that they showed, he's a big part of that.
And I remember there was a point at which Thomas Partey was that man who could do that, but his injury record was such that he just wasn't available for long periods of time, and that hurt Arsenal a great deal. Rice's injury record is outstanding, and I would imagine when they did all of their homework around whether or not they should buy him, that would have been a big reason why, a sort of plus, if you like, why they should get him in. He is so versatile, he is so fit, his engine runs forever. But that delivery, when you add all of that to the delivery that he's able to put inside the box, and as you watch that delivery coming in, the first man goes, and actually Gabriel comes from behind him to beat the offside trap. They've clearly worked on that time and again, as you were saying before. When you have that set-piece coach, well, you can probably articulate it far better than I can.
Yeah, I think it's something that you see that they do spend a lot of time working on. I think, just going back to Rice, I probably appreciate a lot of his traits, but maybe not so much the delivery part, because so much of what he contributes, you know, is just that engine, the midfield control and everything, the tackle, the victory he brings. I think probably working under Arteta, he's working under someone who's so obsessed with the details. I actually think he's only going to, you know, I think he's still got another 10, 20, maybe 30% still to come of his best football. and the fact he can contribute to the set pieces. And I think it is going to become, I don't think all teams necessarily have someone will do the set pieces every week. I don't know that every club has someone specifically as their only role, but I think it's going to become more and more important, because as the margins get squeezed even more, as the game continues to develop, it is going to become more and more.
Well, Arteta's got to find a way, hasn't he, of kind of closing that gap, because as you were saying there, Daz, is that Manchester City can blow teams away. They've got De Bruyne, Haaland, Alvarez. Liverpool, with the firepower they've got, Salah's been injured and they're still scoring goals for fun. Arsenal haven't got that in terms of numbers, so they need to find a way now bridging that gap a little bit more. So if they can be better on set plays, score more from set plays, get more goals from defenders, that's going to help bridge that gap as well.
And especially as we get to this stage of the season, where now we've got Champions League starting to come back into the picture, and so it's going to come down to maybe who's playing later in the weekend, who's dealing with the pressure of that, who's dealing with the teams pulling further away. But as things stand, it's such a close title race. There's only 2 points between the top three. It's not been that close for 10 years, and it's all still to play for, with 14 games, I think 15 games still to go for Manchester City, 14 games for the other teams in the title race, and it's as close as it has been in a decade, and that's nice at this stage. That's a writer's dream, isn't it?
It's an absolute dream for us, because I think the drama that encapsulates, it's almost Groundhog Day to last year, because obviously Arsenal had that lead, what was that, 8 points clear around about this stage.
There it is, exactly there, 8 points.
Thank you very much. But and then of course you've got Liverpool. Can they, in Jurgen Klopp's final season, provide him with the dream ending? So all of the subplots are there. Arsenal, the bridesmaids so often, but you talked about the organisation, you know, and that is presumably going to be the one thing, because when we looked at that set piece graphic and we saw Everton was second, it wasn't that City or Liverpool was second, it was Everton that was second, and I just think they are finding ways to bridge the gap. So all three teams have their mythology, if you like, around them. For us it's fantastic, and I would imagine for the viewers and the people going to games it's equally as good.
I think it will help Arsenal this season because of what they went through last season. Now we've seen Liverpool, Manchester City for the last 5 years, tooth and nail, fighting each other. So when it gets to crunch time, they're both winning all their games, and then ultimately it's been Manchester City's quality that have got them over the line. Arsenal last season, though,
there's a little bit of me that worries that Arsenal could be like if you want to use a tennis analogy, the Andy Murray at a time when you've got Djokovic and Federer, you know, and you've got, you know, three fantastic competitors, but there are just two that are better than you in that particular era. But then it could be the case that City have given themselves too much to do. The intensity of what Liverpool are trying to achieve could catch up with them, and then the organisation of Arsenal helps them to maybe sneak up on the rails. It'll be an interesting one, but that is, as you say, why it's so good.
I read an article this morning in The Independent. It was Richard Jolly was writing about Manchester City and said, you know, we sort of take for granted their levels of excellence, and the word that keeps being used, words around them, are words like inevitable. This feels like it's just coming from Manchester City. We know that they're going to be able to put together this run of form. We know that they're probably going to win every game between now and the end of the season. But sometimes that can detract from the hard work that goes in on the training ground at Manchester City that's required to keep those levels up, because it looks so inevitable. It feels like it's easy for them, and we're underestimating how good they are and how hard they work, more importantly.
Yeah, maybe. I think it was interesting even hearing Haaland just after the game at the weekend, because I think he was asked, you know, how you must feel confidence from the fact you've got a track record of finishing, this part of the season strongly. And he almost was a little bit, it seemed as though he was almost a little bit annoyed, because he was like, well, we feel good because I think we've won the last 10 games in all competitions. But, it's almost, I think, there's an element, I think, at City where maybe the outside world almost adds just a little extra motivation for them, because they do probably feel the work they put in, the standards they maintain, the quality they produce week after week after week, maybe doesn't quite get the recognition it does, because I think everyone, as you say, they're just so used to it.
Yeah, and everybody just expects it. I mean, we've sat here in weeks gone by and said, well, and Manchester City, we know now that they're going to go on a run that's going to take them to as though it's going to happen, and then they'll probably be in the latter stages, if not in the Champions League final and winning the Champions League, and then there's a really good chance that they're going to progress in the FA Cup as well, so they'll probably be on course for another treble. And Pep Guardiola said, look, these things are difficult. They happen rarely for a reason, and we're actually putting a lot of work in here.
Well, they are the new Manchester United, because United had what came to be known as Fergie time, because they did it so often, again and again and again. And that takes will, that takes mentality, that takes belief, that takes attention to detail and organisation. And you do it so much that you burn it into the public consciousness that people believe that you are inevitable. And that's what they've done. 5 of the last 6 seasons, they've won the league. But they haven't just won the league, but they've demolished the opposition. They've won it with games to spare. They've demoralised the opposition to a certain extent. And they've left us with the belief that whatever configuration of players he puts together, they will, in this second half of the season, find out where the finish line is and get to it for anyone else.
Do you know what it is as well? I mean, they work hard, of course. They've got set such high standards, which they don't let drop at all, and that comes from the manager. But also as well, that when you look at the basics, they've got an unbelievable squad. Now, sometimes you can't just look past that and go, well, yeah, they work hard, they've got the best players. But when you look what they can bring off the bench, like Jack Grealish last season was one of their best players. Can't get a look in this season because Jeremy Doku's coming in and he looks fantastic. Next season, they'll change it up. They've lost Mahrez, they've lost Gundogan. But they seem to replace him with real quality players. So I think sometimes you've just got to sometimes hold your hands up and go, well, how are you supposed to compete with that?
Because, but Darren, don't you think, I mean, I know you both have played in teams with good players. I've seen good teams managed by bad managers. And I suppose that the example I'm thinking, I say bad managers, I've seen good teams that where they've had head coaches who don't have the, I don't know, they don't have the ability to manage or inspire. Jose Mourinho won the treble with Inter Milan in 2010. Rafa Benitez takes over the same team and he's sacked by the December because he doesn't have the same ability to motivate and push players through. And I think through football history, we've seen many times that happen where good managers in charge of teams with fantastic talent, but they can't get the best out of them.
I think it's his team, though, isn't it? I think that's his team. Because he's built this team, he knows exactly how it operates, and that's why I think he's probably identified who he's going to leave at the end of the season, and he already knows, well, when he goes, I know for a fact I want to get him, he's coming in. And I think that, again, is the quality that Pep has.
Yeah, it's so hard to have that where you just have that respect across the board. But even, he spoke, I think at half-time, his team talk the other day, it was just about body language, which sounds so simple, but you can just imagine him saying that. Everyone in the dressing room would have just, yeah, you're right. Because you know what it's like, you straight in the first half, everyone's a bit like, oh, you throw the arms go a bit, you know, you get annoyed. And then you think, no, you're right, better energy. You take those players, 1% more energy from everyone.
Yeah, and it all adds up to the success that the City have had under Pep Guardiola. And we're getting into, as we say, even if we feel like we're taking it for granted at times, the part of the season where City do go on and have consistently gone on these runs. So this is who the 3 teams have got in their next 6 Premier League fixtures. So this will take us past that international break, which is weekend of like the 23rd of March. So Liverpool have got Brentford, Luton, Nottingham Forest before they face Manchester City. In that same time, Manchester City have got Chelsea, Brentford, Bournemouth and Man United. And by that stage, then they will be on the same number of games played. Arsenal, Burnley, Newcastle, Sheffield United, Brentford, Chelsea, and then they play Manchester City. And that's the very last weekend of March after the international break. So there's some crunch fixtures coming up there. There's a lot of games that on paper would look winnable, but are equally the kind of games where if you drop points in any of those, the story will be, whether it's true or not, that's it. The title has gone. That's the sort of level of pressure they're going to be dealing with now.
Yeah, it is. The interesting thing about those fixtures is that these 3 will all play each other.
Yeah.
Manchester City will play both of the rivals in that configuration. There are games that we think, they'll win all of them except for the ones against their rivals. But City have lost to Brentford at home before in the last couple of seasons. So that could happen. Arsenal, when it looked as though they were home free, they slipped up at home against Southampton last season. So when it comes to what Fergie used to affectionately call squeaky bum time, you can't legislate for what might happen in any given game. And we know that Liverpool will have a point to prove, for example, against Luton, because I thought when they went to Kenilworth Road it would be a matter of how many, and I packed my fantasy team with Liverpool players and then they got stuffed, so we'll see.
Yeah. You did get, was Diaz in there?
No, it wasn't.
Well, so the one player who did score wasn't
No, it wasn't
the one
there.
Liverpool player you
I
didn't
can
put in
make
your
any
fantasy
player
team.
stop scoring if I put him in my fantasy team. I guarantee you.
Did you have any West Ham players in this weekend?
Yeah, I did have one.
Yeah.
So,
Goalkeeper?
You did, did not.
I did.
Against Arsenal.
Areola. Well, he was on my bench, but he was still. I mean, it was Alisson who was in, and he didn't play.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Okay. Because it was a 6-0 defeat for West Ham against Arsenal, and we'll be asking, first of all, where it's all gone wrong for West Ham and David Moyes, because times are tough for them. There was a little bit of hope there, but given what, and we will get to you, Arsenal, you know, it was a fantastic performance from Arsenal, but that West Ham performance, what can you say about it? Because there was nothing there to suggest at half-time. Even at 4-0 down, it wasn't unlucky. It wasn't as though, you know, Arsenal just had a couple of chances that had gone in for them. It was already the beginning of a demolition, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, the first half was bad. Arsenal, started off reasonably comfortable, got the goals, and then there was a period where Arsenal just, everything they hit went in. But I think it was a reaction after half-time, which was the one that surprised me the most, because I thought they'd come out second half, they're at home, really have a go, get after Arsenal, put a few challenges in, and there was next to nothing. They looked leggy, they looked like there was no energy in the squad. Like, there was just nothing that second half. So it was even, if anything, it was easier for Arsenal that second half than it was in the first half. So I think that was probably the one thing, if you're a West Ham fan, you're disappointed with, that there was just no reaction. I think the first challenge that I thought, oh, that's a bit naughty, was Calvin Phillips when he came on, and that was it. So for West Ham, they've got big problems. I know they're still, if you look at the Premier League table, they're still 8th, which is very good, but that type of performance there, that's one that can have hangover. That could go into next week, the week after, and then where do they find themselves?
And the West Ham fans are unhappy with David Moyes, and have been for, you know, at various stages, even with the European trophy last season, and with some of the results, some of the good results that they've had, they've also been matched by poor performances in games that West Ham fans would feel that they should win. So how much of yesterday's, just take that on its own, yesterday's performance, do you think is down to the manager, and how much of that comes down to the players not individually standing up? Because David Moyes' quote after the game was, "I'll take responsibility for that, but the players have to take responsibility for that as well."
Yeah, and I think he was probably very intentional in saying that publicly. I think naturally everyone has responsibility, and there were elements, I think, you know, you look at, especially the set-piece goals, I think when you look at those, I think naturally the coaching staff are looking at themselves going, were we set up right? Did we adapt? Because it looked as, you know, I saw a number of the corners came in, and every one that came in was the same problem, and there didn't seem to be any sort of adjustment. You think you give away the first one, you need to change something quickly, and the second one, same thing. I mean, you definitely need to make change. I felt they didn't adjust throughout the game well enough to those things. That would be something that, you know, you're looking at the technical staff to be more proactive with. But when you then watch the nature of the game, you felt it was the competitive levels that were possibly not there, the ambition of the players. And I think when there's things like that, as a player, that's on you. You know, you're watching that back after the game, and, you know, the next day, the day after that, whenever you're doing, you know, your main analysis, you don't want to be sitting in that room watching a clip being like, I should be sprinting here and I'm just jogging.
Yeah.
Like, that's an issue. And I think that's the things that fans especially, you know, you got to look like you're getting around the pitch, especially when your team doesn't have the ball. You got to be absolutely giving everything to make sure you're doing your bit. So I think there was a few things there from a David Moyes team you wouldn't expect. I think David Moyes generally, everyone's been really harsh. You know, you look at those figures, I think it's the worst defeat in his managerial career, especially clearly during his time at West Ham. So he's a manager that I think with the players they've had over the time he's been there, he's done an absolutely fantastic job. But, you know, Benny's talking about the fact they're 8th. There is this feeling that, you know, not everyone's too happy, and I think, you know, that probably is a little bit unfair, but there's the performance and result yesterday is definitely a tough one for the West Ham fans.
You're right, it's the heaviest defeat for David Moyes, but Arsenal did score 6 against an Everton side managed by David Moyes, and that one finished 6-1. Everton got a reply in that one, so not quite as bad as that 6-0 for West Ham. As Rachel said, there is context to this, which is that West Ham are in 8th place. They're level on points with Newcastle, but the feel around those two clubs couldn't be any more different.
Yeah.
West Ham won a European trophy last season, and there was huge sort of excitement coming into this season. Could almost argue that West Ham are sort of slightly overachieving in terms of their league position, given where they were at this stage last season. So why the frustration from West Ham fans, do you think?
West Ham fans feel they should be playing a better brand of football than they're playing at the moment. They should be less defensive, more expansive. They feel that for the expenditure at the club, and when you compare them to Newcastle, West Ham don't have the kind of money to spend as much as Newcastle have done.
So then just adds to the point, doesn't it? That
I totally agree
that
with
West
you.
Ham should. Oh, so
They've overachieved massively. He's not only have they overachieved massively, David has saved them twice from relegation, and in between, they had Pellegrini who came in, and not only the team but the whole setup was an utter disaster under him. He bought a goalkeeper who couldn't catch. He had a team that couldn't defend. He had players going to the chairman and basically saying, "Look, we're not happy with what's going on here." And David Moyes came back to the club and brought them respectability. And I remember one night when I did the story, broke the story about him coming back to West Ham, and I had people direct message me saying, are you serious? This is, God, these owners, they don't know what they're doing. And he went on to save them from relegation, and then he went on to get them into sixth, compete for the top four. They missed out narrowly because they didn't have the resource. But he has done great things for that football club, and I feel a lot of sympathy, because I think if I were him, I wouldn't even want to sign a new contract. I think his contract ends at the end of the season. Maybe goes to a club where what you're trying to do dovetails with what the fans want. Just one very quick thing. I remember when the owners at West Ham talked about wanting to bring big European nights to the London Stadium, when the fans used to complain about the London Stadium being soulless. Now, you don't get that anymore, because they're getting wins against big clubs. They're competing for the top six. They are in European football every other Thursday, and they've won a trophy. He's the only manager to deliver a trophy in the last 40 years. Has he overachieved? Absolutely. But it may well be that he reads the direction of travel and decides, you know what, maybe I'm better off at a club where what I'm trying to do is appreciated, if you like, for want of a better word. And maybe it could be the fact that maybe both things could be true, in so much as West Ham fans maybe need someone who's going to evolve the team, move them on to the next level. We saw it at Brighton after Chris Hughton, and Graham Potter came in, and now Roberto De Zerbi. Maybe that's where West Ham are headed.
I think that's what it is. I think the fans look like they're watching stagnated football. I think if you've not got the players to do it, then I think David Moyes has got a point that we have to set them up in this way because we don't want to get beat. But I think when you start introducing the likes of Kudus and Paquetá, Jared Bowen's been fantastic, even Ward-Prowse to a point, I think the West Ham fans are like, well, hold on now, we've got...
Paquetá's not been playing because he's injured, and Kudus has been away,
but that
and
type
they've really missed him.
Yes, that type of player where it's not about backs to the wall now. We should be on the front foot, we should be able to make things happen, create opportunities, a little bit of flair of excitement. I think if it continues, and these guys do come back from injuries, and obviously Kudus is back now, and they're still playing this kind of defensive-minded, branded football, then I can understand West Ham's perspective. But at some point, they're going to have to maybe come out of their comfort zones and try something a bit different. But that's just not David Moyes, and he's not been successful doing it that way.
Do you think if they do have Paquetá, they do have Kudus, and they do get James Ward-Prowse back and involved and firing on all cylinders, that things can turn around for West Ham? Or do you think that relationship between David Moyes and the fans is broken? What's your feel about it?
I know that there are the fans. It's almost Arsene Wenger in, Arsene Wenger out, as it was at Arsenal. There are some players who appreciate what David's doing. There are some some fans who appreciate what he's doing, and some people who basically say, no, we are too defensive. Even when those players are with us, we are still too defensive, and they feel that the winds paper over the cracks. As I said before, I know that the owners are very, very supportive of David Moyes and what he's done, and they appreciate where he's taken the club from where it was, and they were on the floor when he came back to the club. So, although lots of people are suggesting they may change manager, listen, after you lose 6, you have to decide what you're going to do. Let's not kid ourselves. But I think it might.
I'm Derek Ray. I'm joined for commentary by former Arsenal fullback Lee Dixon. And without doubt, a match with the potential to bring genuine excitement. It's Luton Town taking on Chelsea.
Hi, Derek, thank you. Well, both managers will be reminding their players how important...
Well, it could be on for him here. Is it going to be? Keeper getting the touch. And it's gone behind for the corner. Over it comes. Well, did his job defensively. And they'll get ready for the throw-in. Pearson. So after that, a goal kick it'll be. Well, pick your adjective where Hakim Ziyech is concerned. Explosive, I think, might be an approach. Can they take the lead here? And mistimed the run, sadly. That's offside. Throw-ins given. This looks promising.
Well, it's the care and attention, all that worked.
And a blunder by the keeper. Werner. Promising attack, but his timing was off. Well, they've lost possession of the ball. Nicely cut out. Oh, that's an interesting pass. Ziyech. In it goes. An early goal. No wonder they're celebrating.
Well, as we look at this again, the keeper's every right to ask where his back line was, but 2v1 in the end. He's thinking now, is he going to pass or go round me? He's got no chance.
Well, real difficulty keeping the ball. Ball's gone.